All right, here is page 2 of practice skills test number 7. This equation is called g of x. So I always start with the graph on the left. I don't know why. This is an absolute value graph. Absolute value. The locator point there is left 3 and up 2. So left 3 is that, and up 2. And the slope of the line to the right is the a value. Now I can't tell what that is because that's at a cruddy decimal. So let me go over here and look at the slope of this line right here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 5, right 2. And up 5, right 2 is this guy. That means the right side would actually be negative 5 over 2. So that's a little tricky right there. Didn't see that one coming. The other equation here is our exponential, 2 to the x. So 2 to the, let me find the first pretty corner. The first pretty corner is right there. Remember, the first pretty corner used to be there. So that's only right 1, x minus 1, and up 1 plus 1. There's our equations, just the domain restriction left. X is less than for the absolute value. X is greater than or equal to for the exponential, and the cutoff was at -2 for both. Okay. To the inverses we go. These inverses can be a little tricky. I was looking at some of them. They're tougher than usual. So remember, inverses has 2 steps. First, we swap x's with y's, and f of x is a fancy way of saying y. So we put x there instead, and we put y in for that x. And after we swap x with y, we solve for y. So all of this stuff needs to be moved to the other side in the proper order. And the first thing we're going to do is move this plus 1. And when we move that plus 1, we subtract 1 from both sides. Let's see if I can squeeze this in this tiny space. So that's gone. Next, I need to get rid of this fraction. Now, I don't want to divide by 2/3. That's going to create a fraction that contains a fraction, which is a big no-no. So instead of dividing by 2/3, I could do one step at a time, multiply both sides by 3 just to get rid of the 3, then divide both sides by 2 to get rid of the 2, or I can multiply by the reciprocal. That's one way to do it. So if I multiply this side by 3 over 2, it would cancel. If I multiply this side, which is this x minus 1, by 3 over 2, that would get rid of this 2/3. That's one option. Next thing I want to do is get rid of a cubed. The opposite of cubed is cube rooting. Cube rooting has a couple of options. You could do the square root symbol and put a cubed, meaning cube root, and then put that stuff inside. Or you can raise all this to the reciprocal of that 3, which we're recently doing. So I could do the whole thing raised to the 1/3 power. Those are your two choices. They mean the same thing. Both are correct. And now that 3 is gone. And then the last step would be to add 4. And that's equal to the inverse of f. So hopefully that made sense. Rewind that if you need to hear that again. And then C is asking you to plug 19 into that. So let's see if we can do this without a calculator. I might need to bust out my calculator. Let's see. 19 minus 1 is 18. 18 times 3 over 2 is 27. And 27 cube rooted is conveniently 3. 3 plus 4 is 7. I kind of did that in my head. I could always use a calculator if this was a calculator test, which it will be. Okay, B. I'll go over here if I have a little bit more room. X equals 1 over y plus 2. Step number 1, switch x with y. So that's what I did in this first step. And now I would multiply both sides by y plus 2 just to cancel this out. I got to do it over here also. Y plus 2, and that has to be distributed. So I get an xy, just writing that in alphabetical order, and a 2x, and that's equal to the 1. That's all that's left over there. That gets rid of fractions. That's all that is, so we don't have to work with any fractions. I'm still trying to solve for y, so the 2x I'm going to move to the other side. Subtract 2x from both sides, and that's gone. And then you would divide by x. This whole thing gets divided by x in the last step, and that's equal to the inverse of g. Okay, I'll put a box around that. I should have boxed the other one. And then D is asking you to plug -1 in for these x's. So if I wrote that off to the side here, this isn't bad. That's going to get me +3 on the top divided by -1. Looks like -3 is the answer to that guy. Okay, onward. 22B, question A. These are all just more inverse problems. There's plenty of here for you to work on. Switch x with y, solve for y. So I'm going to divide by that 3 first. I'm going to get rid of the square root by squaring. Get rid of this +1 by subtracting 1. And get rid of that 2 by dividing by 2. But I can't divide by 2. That'll create a fraction within a fraction. So I have to figure out plan B. Keeping in mind, this is where I'm at right now. I'll bring down this 2y. See, I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of that 2, but I don't want to create another fraction here. So instead of dividing by 2, I can multiply by 1/2. So if I multiplied both sides by 1/2, I would need to introduce a new parenthesis because the 1/2 goes with everything. And now this 2 is gone. So I'm going to erase it since I ran out of room. In fact, I will erase the y and put the correct notation there, the inverse of f. All right, there's our ugly inverse. That was yucky. Now we're supposed to plug 9 into it. Let's see if we can do this without a calculator. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 3 squared is 9. 9 minus 1 is 8. 8 times 1/2 is 4. Onward. X equals 1/4 y minus 5 squared plus 2. Step number 1 is to subtract the 2 from both sides. That's gone. Get rid of this 1/4 by multiplying both sides by 4. Now, when you multiply this side by 4, there's a lot of people who would write 4x minus 8. Totally fine to write 4x minus 8. It's just so squishy, I don't want to rewrite it just to distribute. You don't have to distribute. So keeping it like that is fine. So now this guy's gone. Now I want to get rid of the squared. That would require square rooting. Square root the entire side. That's gone. And then the last step would be to add 5. That's equal to the inverse of g. Oops. So let me box that. It's getting kind of squishy. And then D is asking you to plug in 27. Let's see how friendly this is. 27 minus 2 is 25. 25 times 4 is 100. The square root of 100 is 10. 10 plus 5 is 15. Excuse me. All right. C. Let's widen out over here. X equals the cube root of 4y minus 1 on top of 6. All right, multiply both sides by 6. I see 6x. 6 is gone. Cancel the cube root. That would take cubing. Cube cancels out a cube root. And then that would be gone. Let's get rid of the -1 by adding 1. And the last step would be to divide by 4, which I can totally do. Okay. There was our inverse. That wasn't too bad, I hope. Now I got to stick 1/2 in here for x. 6 times 1/2 is 3. 3 cubed is 27. 27 plus 1 is 28. And 28 divided by 4 is 7. Okay, that's page 2 of the practice. I'll see you at page 3.